Everyone around Blake Lively thought that keeping the lawsuit going at this point, after everything that had gone on over the last year and a half, was just an idiotic idea.
So according to these new text messages, Blake Lively asked Sony to delete evidence.
There were certain dailies that Blake Lively wanted Sony to destroy.
Blake Lively attempted to remove the raw video of her production, and that sole decision became the primary reason she was compelled to resolve her lawsuit with Justin Baldoni.
Asking us to destroy some of the dailies. Want to tell you what we will and won't do. Also, going to ask Bridget to contact all vendors and ask them to delete all dailies.
In the movie business, a daily is basically this short piece of raw video footage that gets filmed every single day on set. Because they're unedited, they show what actors do before the director yells action, including their regular conversation. For anyone trying to prove something happened or didn't happen on a set, dailies are basically the holy grail of evidence. They're the actual receipts. When Blake Lively asked Sony to destroy these dailies, she thought she was covering her wrongdoing. And obviously, people would believe her because she is a female actress. But guess what? Blake made one serious mistake, as she thought Justin Baldoni didn't have his own backup copies. And Justin was waiting for this exact moment to use those receipts. Part of that is we don't want to be bullied and left out.
Yep.
We want to keep our man card. In a September 3rd email, which was sent by Giannetti to the president of Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group, and said this: "Call me when you can. Not urgent. But Blake is asking us to destroy some of the dailies. I want to tell you what we will and won't do. Also gonna ask Bridget to contact all vendors and ask them to delete all dailies and need them to proof. First time I have ever been asked to do this in a movie with no sensitive thing. That right there tells you everything." Giannetti is an incredibly experienced marketing president who's spent her whole career working on massive studio movies. And she's saying that in all her years of doing this, she's never once been asked by a star to destroy raw footage on a movie that didn't have any inappropriate scenes in it. Well, it makes total sense for famous actors to want certain footage deleted so it doesn't leak to the internet. That's just a normal privacy concern. But that movie didn't have any scenes like that. There was no reason for Blake to want raw footage destroyed. Her request was completely strange and had no normal explanation behind it. Also, this is where the timeline becomes really messy. Less than 2 weeks before this email, on August 21st, Blake Lively's team had gotten their hands on the private text messages of Jennifer El, who was a PR person working for Justin Baldoni's team. After reading the plans of the other side, Blake understood she had to go to total battle. And to win that battle, she needed to clean up any video evidence that would prove Justin Baldoni was completely innocent. She wanted Sony and every single third-party vendor who worked on the film to delete those files forever. She wanted the truth to be erased.
Part of that is we don't want to be bullied and left out.
Yep.
We want to keep our man.
So Blake obviously thought the video was gone. She seemed safe and armed with that fake confidence. She walked into a legal courtroom for her deposition on July 31st. Now, for those who don't know, if you lie in a deposition, you're committing a crime known as perjury. During this session, lawyers asked her this very simple question: did she ever ask anyone from Sony to destroy the dailies? And Blake answered, quote, "No, I never asked anyone to destroy dailies." The lawyers asked her again if she ever asked anyone else to tell Sony to do this on her behalf. She said, "No" again. So, as per these receipts and what we know because of that email, Blake committed under oath because she thought her conversations were going to stay hidden and the footage was going to get burned. However, she had absolutely no idea that everything she said would come back to destroy her. But more importantly, she had no idea that Justin Baldoni had his own backup copies of everything.
Why is Blake demanding that everyone, the vendors, and all of Sony delete the daily?
Blake made one major mistake when she told Sony to delete the dailies. She did not know that Justin Baldoni and his company Wayfair Studios had their own secret backup copies of all the footage. That right there was her biggest mistake. Because Blake thought the raw footage was gone forever, she felt completely free to make up these outrageous stories about what happened on set. In her formal complaints, she made very serious accusations about a specific dance scene they filmed together. She claimed our boy Justin acted in a very bad way during the scene, basically changing the facts to make him look like some kind of villain. Meanwhile, Baldwin's lawyer, Brian Friedman, just waited for the right moment to spring the trap. He let Blake make her false claims and put her lies on the official record. But then, when the time was perfect, he released the receipts. Justin Baldwin's team released 10 full minutes of raw, unedited video footage of the exact dance scene. Blake was complaining about the video proved that Justin did absolutely nothing wrong. But here's the thing, the trap was even deeper than just the video. Blake didn't know that there was clear audio to go with the video. During the filming of that specific dance scene, Justin was wearing a hidden body microphone under his clothes. This microphone recorded every single word they said to each other during the scene between takes. The audio combined with the raw video proved that Blake was not telling the truth about the entire event. If the dailies had actually been destroyed the way she wanted them to be, the whole case would have basically been her word against his. And let's be real here, in those situations, people usually tend to side with the famous actress over the director. That's just how it works. But because Justin kept the video and audio receipts, Blake was fully exposed. The world could see that she only built these false claims because she thought the proof was in the trash. Her entire story fell apart the exact moment that 10-minute video was released, and that's when everything started to really go down the hill for her.
We live in an age where capitalism is rampant and it feeds off of insecurity and the feeling like we're...
Blake went even deeper down this dark rabbit hole. Her attempts to control the story went way beyond just trying to erase footage. She actually used the court system in this really distorted way to obtain private text messages from Baldwin's team. And the way she did it, that's what we're going to talk about right now. So, this part of the story revolves around a woman named Jennifer A.L. She was a public relations expert who worked very closely with Justin Baldoni and his company Wayfair. She had a work phone that belonged to her company, Jones Works. And that phone held years of private text messages, emails, and secret plans between her and Justin Baldwin's team. When Jennifer A.L. left her job at Jones Works, her phone was taken from her by the owner of the company, Stephanie Jones, on August 21st. They told Jennifer they just needed the phone to port her phone number. But the truth was, they locked her out of all her personal and work data. They basically obtained her phone and everything on it. Now, here's where it gets really suspicious. On that exact same day, Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, called Justin Baldwin's crisis PR agent, Melissa Nathan. Sloan told Nathan that she had previously seen the private text messages from Abel's phone, and then she threatened Nathan, telling her that she was going to be sued. Think about the timing here. I suspect Blake's team somehow previously knew what was on that stolen phone before they even officially got access to it. And that, for me, is not an accident.
Every set that Blake has been on has been super problematic with a ton of issues, and I just find it very strange.
This whole thing has created a serious issue for Blake Lively's team, though. They had reviewed at private messages that did not belong to them. If they just gave those stolen texts to a media, people would ask how they got them. It would look like a bad situation. So, they needed a way to make the stolen texts look clean. They needed to make it look like the texts were handed over through a real legal court order. In the legal world, this is basically like money laundering, but for evidence. You're taking something that was acquired illegally and running it through the legal system to make it look legitimate. So, to pull this trick off, Blake and Ryan created this shell company named Vanson Incorporated. Now, a shell company is basically a business that exists only on paper. It has no real operations, no real employees, and absolutely no direct connection to the movie It Ends With Us. Blake only owned 50% of it, and this was literally just a vehicle for something else. On September 27th, Vanson filed this low-profile John Doe lawsuit in New York. A John Doe lawsuit means you're suing someone, but you don't name who they are. The lawsuit claimed there were some contract disputes, but it was all entirely fake. Vanson suffered no harm and had no real reason to sue anyone. It was a total scam. The whole Vanson lawsuit was created for one single purpose, to give Blake Lively the court authority to issue a subpoena. A subpoena is a court order demanding that someone hand over documents. Right after filing this fake lawsuit, Vanson sent a massive subpoena to Stephanie Jones.
Lively Ashley found her way to Lively to tell her that Stephanie Jones was trying to reach her because she had obtained Jane Abel's phones that had some text messages or messages that she wanted Blake to see.
Language of this subpoena specifically requested for all documents related to SH and retaliation matters. Now here's the issue with that. In September 2024, nobody had formally filed a lawsuit using the words SH yet there. Blake was using this false corporate dispute to obtain texts she already knew were on the phone. She knew they were there because Stephanie Jones had secretly informed her about them through a mutual friend, Ashley Agnon, who is also close friends with Taylor Swift. Stephanie Jones was meant to protect the private data of her former employee and her clients. Instead, she concealed the Van Zandt subpoena from Jennifer Abel and Wayfair. By keeping it secret, she ensured Justin Baldoni's team could not go before a judge and stop the subpoena order. Jones just gave the entire contents of the phone directly to Blake's shell company. Once Van Zandt obtained the texts, the trap was closed. The evidence was now processed through the legal system. On the 19th of December, 2024, Blake instructed her lawyers to drop the Van Zandt lawsuit. The lawsuit disappeared because it had completed its job. Just a few days after the false lawsuit was dropped, these private text messages appeared in an article in the New York Times report. Blake's team leveraged the strong reputation of the New York Times to establish a permanent, highly public narrative against Justin Baldoni by channeling the stolen phone data through costly law firms and fabricated court filings. Blake bypassed the rules of fairness to advance her own public relations objectives aims.
And used that to file a lawsuit in New York State Court to issue the subpoena that we now see to Stephanie Jones to obtain all the documents that Stephanie Jones told her at the very least that.
When people get desperate to win, they show their true facades. And Blake's desperation to beat our guy Justin made her cross lines that honestly shocked the legal world. During the lawsuit, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, handed a very critical paper to the judge. In this sworn paper, Friedman said he had this hour-long phone call on Valentine's Day. He was talking to a person who was very closely linked to Taylor Swift. And according to this trusted source, Blake Lively's lawyers had called Taylor Swift's lawyers to demand that Taylor Swift make this major public social media post supporting Blake Lively. Blake needed this because people had noticed that she didn't go to the Super Bowl with Taylor that year due to all the negative press. But here's the thing. This was not a friendly ask. It appears to me more like a threat. Brian also swore under oath that Blake's team told Swift's team that if she did not post the support post, Blake would leak 10 years of highly private text messages between the two women to the media. Friedman also said Blake asked Swift to delete all their old text messages from her phone to hide evidence, exactly like she tried to do with the Sony dailies.
Backhanded move just shows me that they actually had no intention of filing their lawsuit. That instead they were hoping to get the documents that they had in a way that they could, on its face, say was clean and get the New York Times hit piece out.
Blake was so determined to win this Hollywood battle that she was willing to ruin a 10-year friendship and violate Swift's privacy. She had been saving those private texts just so she could use them as a tool against a friend if she ever needed to. Her legal team fully panicked when this news came out. They rushed to the judge and filed an emergency motion to get Friedman's paper thrown out of the public record. They called the claims false and said they were totally fake. Judge Louis Lyman agreed to throw the paper out, saying it was irrelevant to the main lawsuit and that it only served to create a public scandal. He warned Baldoni's team not to misuse the court files. Blake's publicists were happy telling reporters that the court saw through the lies in less than 24 hours, but it was a hollow win. The judge didn't throw the paper out because it was a lie. He threw it out because he didn't want a public spectacle in his courtroom. Everyone knew Friedman would not risk his entire career to lie about Taylor Swift. The paper showed the world exactly who Blake really is, a person who saves private texts just to hold them against her friends. Not long after this, Sources close to Swift told magazines that their friendship was halted, and she wanted absolutely no part in the drama.
Ryan Friedman's deposition, he claims that somebody close to Taylor Swift, we presume Papa Swift, her dad, contacted him in February of 2025 and claimed that about 5 months prior, Blake Lively had instructed Taylor Swift to delete their text.
Now, this is where things get extremely messy. When you file a lawsuit, you have to prove that you engaged in protected activity. This means you have to show you bravely stood up and complained about misconduct, and then you were punished for it. Blake Lively built her entire case around this concept. But the court documents show that her complaints were not genuine cries for help. They were changing lists, used to gain control of the movie, and later changed to file a lawsuit. The first step of this plan happened in November 2023. The entire movie industry had been shut down for months because the actors and writers were on strike. On November 9th, the exact day the strike ended, Blake's lawyers suddenly sent Wayfair Studios this very harsh 17-point list of demands. The document was titled Protections for Return to Production. Blake told Wayfair that these 17 points were non-negotiable. She said she would not return to the set to finish the movie unless they agreed to every single point. The list used very aggressive language. It also hinted that massive, terrible misconduct had happened during the first half of filming, even though it did not list specific events. The demands were huge. Blake demanded that an intimacy coordinator be on set at all times. She demanded that no one make any comments about her physical appearance, and she should be allowed to have her own personal representative on set to watch everyone. Wayfair Studios chose to save the movie and agreed to the 17 points under massive pressure. Blake used this signed list to build a paper trail, laying the groundwork to later claim she was a victim. But a year later, when the real legal battle started, Blake realized she had a problem. The 7-point list did not have the highly specific claims she needed to win a massive federal case. So, she simply made up a new list. When Blake filed her official complaint with the California Civil Rights Department and her civil lawsuit, she included a brand new 30-point list of shocking claims. She stated in her legal papers that on January 4th, she sat in a big all-hands meeting and personally read all 30 of these claims out loud from her phone to Justin Baldoni, his team, and Sony executives. But there was only one massive problem with this 30-point list. It did not exist in January 2024. During the discovery phase of the lawsuit, Wayfair's lawyers demanded to see the original digital file of the 30-point list. Blake's lawyers could not produce it. The oldest version of the file they could find had digital metadata showing it was created in July 2025. This was a disaster for Blake. July 2025 was 7 months after she filed the lawsuit and 1.5 years after the January meeting where she read it out loud. There was zero digital proof that this 30-point list existed before the legal war started. The truth became clear to everyone. Blake and her lawyers took the original 17-point list and edited it. They expanded it and added 13 more fake points to make their legal case stronger and to give the newspapers a better headline. When lawyers questioned the people who were actually at the January 4th meeting, no one could remember her reading this explosive 30-point list. The entire core of her lawsuit was built on a document that was typed up after the fact.
Source close to Taylor Swift says that Taylor feels she has no choice but to draw a line. Their friendship collapsed months ago, and she doesn't want blurred obligations lingering.
Now, here's what I think started this whole mess. This entire disaster happened for one simple reason. Blake Lively could not handle creative boundaries. She didn't just want to act, and it ends with us. She wanted to own a movie that was paid for, produced, and directed by Justin Baldoni. The fight behind the cameras was absolutely ugly. Blake and Ryan basically staged a takeover of the movie editing room. Blake didn't have a contract that gave her the final say on how the movie looked, but she demanded that the studio release her own personal cut of the film anyway. She completely ignored Justin and used her fame to tell the Sony executives into doing what she wanted. Internal emails at Sony show what happened. Unsealed text messages between top Sony executives Sanford Panic and Ani show they were very frustrated with her. Sony tested both versions of the movie with real audiences. Justin Baldwin's original cut scored much higher with people than the cut made by Blake and Ryan. Even though her version was worse, Blake threw an absolute fit. Jannetty complained to other executives that Blake and Ryan refused to put important emotional scenes back into the movie from Baldwin's cut. Whenever Baldwin tried to push back, Blake went against him. In texts given to the court, she complained to her friends that when Baldwin gave a polite response, it didn't feel great for me, or to have my passion praised instead of my specific contribution. She wanted total control. When he did not give it to her, she tried to erase him completely. She even forced the people who actually made the movie to sit in a basement during the premiere. She banned Justin Baldoni from going to big events like Book Bonanza. She took him off the posters and trailers so the public only saw her. It was a campaign of eraser design to make it look like she was the sole creative force behind the film. But her plan to take over failed in public. Without Justin there to guide the tone, Blake turned the press tour for a serious movie into an absolute joke.
Of damages, but I really think that this ultimately came down to their reputations, and they probably decided, and Blake Lively probably decided, that it would hurt her reputation more, potentially going.
For Blake, going to a real trial was essentially a horror. If she stood in the witness chair on May 18th, she would be interrogated by Baldwin's lawyers about her July 2025 deposition, where she committed perjury about destroying the dailies. Blake's lawyers are cunning. They knew they had failed. There was no hidden evidence to save her. Her whole case was constructed on lies, changed dates, and fabricated lists. Staring at total public ruin, Blake backed down. In May 2026, right before the trial was supposed to start, the two sides resolved. They released a joint statement to help Blake save a tiny bit of face, but everyone in Hollywood knows the truth. This is a major win for Justin Baldwin. He didn't have to pay her millions of dollars. He didn't have to apologize for things he didn't do and stop the attack to keep his pride. But I want to hear from y'all. What do you guys think was the worst thing Blake did in all of this? Leave a comment and let me know. And if you made it this far, press that subscribe button.